Campers, it's me, Ari Lehman, the first Jason Voorhees. From Friday the 13th, I'm here with AJ, and he's got the juiciest slice ready for you. It's dripping with blood. Jason never dies.
What makes a horror film kill memorable, terrific, even in some way profound or poignant? Over the course of 49 episodes, we've explored that inquiry, and so much more as we've chopped our way through a dense maze-like jungle of extraordinary exits, to unearth that which awaits us in the dark undergrowth. We've scraped at the bones of victim after victim, arriving at this 50th episode. This time around, we're going to the other end of the spectrum.
He must be a real bright maniac, this fella.
And looking at the vicious, brutal, and often merciless defeats of the evildoers that imbue horror with all the chills, thrills, and kills that keep us on the edge of our seats, and a jump scare away from sending the popcorn flying.
Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
So what gives a killer's exit that extra something something that makes it stick out more than others? Let's explore. Thanks a lot for checking this out.
I love you.
I appreciate it deeply. If anything about it trips your fancy, please like, subscribe, and share.
Yes, yes.
These are in no particular order, each equally valid and great, and a fitting end to the baddie in question.
What the goddamn to do?
The films represent different levels of quality and technique, but rest assured, each defeat packs quite a punch. It also doesn't matter if the villain returned in a future entry. There's no guarantee even big tentpole franchises will get another sequel. Look at the limbo Friday the 13th is stuck in. So any of these endings could have been the definitive end.
Don't skip on the meat.
I wouldn't dare! To prove these are, in fact, all prime cuts and coming off the grill and out of the smoker in no particular order, I'm starting with a real banger. An unquestionable humdinger, a damn sight better than hamburger, or even ground chuck, and one that would never come in last on any countdown.
That was a good one.
And in regard to every one of these, just remember,
They had it coming.
Soul now permanently trapped in his dull body, Chucky is no longer hampered by a need to keep Andy alive for sake of body swapping. Thus, the incorrigible young man absolutely needs to be slaughtered. And what better place to do that than a good guy doll factory? A confusing obstacle course of manufacturing by way of a pinball machine and Rube Goldberg. Evidently, the pushing of a few random buttons can redirect the whole show, leading to the unfortunate creation of monstrosities. I'm sure Chucky needn't worry about ending up in there. The machine does what machines do best, and works mindlessly, but efficiently, to complete a task. Knowing Chucky, I'm sure he fared fine. Maybe a little worse for wear, but okay. I guess it's a big helping of crow for me. Clearly that is that. Chucky is done away with, bested. There's no chance he'll...
Got you now, Andy. You know what I'm gonna do to you?
Won't be a feast of crow after all. Chucky is a resilient little shit, worthy of our admiration. Well, relatively speaking. And whatever he's planning to do, safe bet, it isn't nice.
I'm gonna cut off your legs, too!
Down a hand, a pair of legs, and evidently whatever good sense he had, Chucky is a little overzealous in his attack. getting himself trapped in the worst possible place if you want to avoid a mind-bendingly painful death. Right beneath the molten plastic dispenser, and he's very aware of the folly of his blundering approach. Seeing a terrifying killer quake in terror is sobering and humbling. The cascade of scorching hot plastic completely coats him. Now a very flesh and blood entity, so he's obviously in torturous pain. It would be like getting tossed in molten lava, a death far slower and more agonizing than movies would have us believe. The clock running down. Andy rescues his foster sister Kyle just in the nick of time.
Alright, Andy.
Cementing the win. Can't labor under illusions. That has to be it now. That was one hell of a way to go. No one could survive all that, right? Not even Chucky. Okay, I'll level with you. I had a pretty good idea he would pop up again. If you thought he was infuriated before he was turned into something that could be mistaken for one of the tall man's canister babies. Interestingly, same in-suit performer, but due to allegations, I won't go into that any further.
Well, I'm sincerely glad to hear that, for all our sakes.
Anyway, you haven't seen nothing yet, because Chucky is at peak infuriation. But Kyle has her wits about her, and improvisation wins the day. Flesh and blood maybe, but there's enough plasticity left to his form, and therefore elasticity, to inflate like a balloon. This is one of those situations where things going kerflooey means they get kablooey. That hits close to home. I can relate so much. Luckily, as a demon in a flesh sack, I was able to remanifest.
There's a lot of pressure under that kind of stress, and he might become irrational.
Anyhow, after this escapade, Chucky knew what thunder felt like. The obstacle course of death brought about a commendable end for Chucky. A multi-pronged, prolonged, and absolutely shell-shocking affair, and one you're unlikely to forget. It sure didn't skimp on the suffering either. It makes clear that even a killer doll can die in agony. Chucky put Andy through hell, only for Andy to douse him in liquid hell, before Kyle demonstrated just how inflated his ego was, by making him a visual representation of it. Remember, Chucky chose to pursue them. Truly as much a victim of anger mismanagement as body image issues, he probably should have walked away when he still had legs to walk away with.
You you've done it again! Ah, you cool shit!
Drayton, the family cook, is rightfully upset. His whole carefully managed enterprise.
Family standards only require the best meat in town. More money lost. I never get a break.
Has been unspooled by a deadly road rage incident, inspired by a pair of yuppies so insistent on bugging a pretty young DJ, their murders were captured for posterity on her radio show, bringing a lawman bearing a personal grudge into the heart of their domain.
Boys, you never should have been doing this.
An insight into Drayton, he can't conceive of Lefty's invasion as a crusade to destroy them out of a personal vendetta and genuine moral opposition bordering on sanctimony.
Who sent you?
It has to be the competition making a power move.
Those sissies over Delmar Catering? That chicken shit burrito man butt?
That someone wouldn't have a price fails to figure. The whole world is a bidding war to him, and for the right amount, anyone can be bought. It's human nature.
Let's make a deal right here. Real cash money.
Not so fast. Some are certifiable in their conviction, and that's where Lefty falls.
I'm the Lord of the Harvest.
Completely invested in religious fervor.
Who's that? Some new health food bunch?
Humorously, Drayton's biggest nightmare before this day was probably that there would be a societal shift away from meat consumption.
Lefty.
How they source their meat will prove the final linchpin.
Sister.
Through a combination of dauntless determination and convenient incompetence, Lefty orchestrated Stretch's inclusion in this hellscape. So seeing her there, head drooping into the kill bucket, brings it all home for him. As Drayton always suspected was an eventuality. For all his troubles, he gets it right in the derriere. Very quickly a lot happens. Drayton skittering under the dinner table, Chop Top leaving the kill hammer with Grandpa, Stretch fleeing, and the confrontation the film has inexorably built toward. Deeply desiring a mano-a-mano exchange involving chainsaws. I mean, it's Texas. Nothing stopped Lefty from bringing a gun and putting one between Leatherface's eyes. The over-the-edge lawman gets his wish. His own chainsaw-slinging skills a source of pride. Leatherface is happy to oblige. With the duel underway, Stretch has her own problems, because the strangest member of a very eccentric family is intent on denying her an unimpeded escape. What would be the fun in that? Much like in spontaneous kitchen sex, the chainsaw clash naturally winds up on the dinner table. Ensconced beneath said table like a tick in a dog's armpit, consummate entrepreneur Drayton bemoans his bad luck. I mean, he did everything right.
Small businessman. Always gets it in the ass.
For all his constant unfiltered bitching and moaning.
Sure took care of my hams.
He's seemingly an eternal optimist.
Saved a trip to the hospital.
Realizing the extent of the damage.
Looks bad.
Sobers him quickly to the reality of the situation.
Sure burned my beans bad on that one.
Were Stretch evading a run-of-the-mill maniac who wasn't so squirrely, her maneuvers would probably win her a lot more ground. As it is, she manages to stay ahead of the crafty devil nipping at her heels. With the battle raging, Lefty delivers what should be the death move. But who knows, Leatherface is a survivalist idiot savant, able to get out of the worst situations. I don't know about this time, though. What the hell was that? Maybe some kind of phantasm? No matter.
Maybe it's time to just shut down. Time to shut down the show, yeah.
Resigned to the fact it's either get help, bleed out, or end it all, Drayton knows that the fastest way to extinguish the literal pain in his ass, and all the pesky other pains in the ass always vexing him, maybe unfortunately or maybe fortunately, lies in the latter.
Yeah, pull the plug. Come here, Nubbins.
Not a solution I would suggest or encourage, but his plan is fairly flawless.
Where's that old fuck you Charlie?
Were he blessed with the level of comprehension necessary to understand what's going on, Leatherface would be suffering the ultimate humiliation. What a subtle nod to the adage, live by the sword, die by the sword, as in live by the saw, die by the saw. Just so subtle. To be fair, Leatherface fights well for a man with a chainsaw meant to level redwoods hanging out of his gut. Drayton is still getting handsy with mummified brother Nubbins, searching out.
That little just-in-case baby.
Implements of destruction always close at hand. It's only a matter of time before he locates the solution to all his problems. There in his final moment, about to breathe his last, caustic and bitchy to the last.
Man builds a good sturdy trade by hooking and crooking.
Drayton laments the downright blatant unfairness of it all.
And then, kerflooey! The guys just kick him right in the balls.
Maybe demonstrating that what was important to him was control, he seems to see some form of victory in his solution.
Not this time.
Stretch has to kick Chop Top away with her Texas boot. And test the conductivity of the metal plate covering the hole in his skull. Before she's able to find a possible route out of the Texas Battleland. Meanwhile, Drayton thinks he has it all figured out.
I got the last laugh right here!
But it will be Grandpa. He always had a pretty dark sense of humor. Who will get the last laugh? And shows Drayton there's really no end to taking it in the ass. What's worse, the volatile pineapple goes rogue. Presumably finishing off Lefty, Drayton, Grandpa, and Leatherface, Stretch is emerging into the light as the grenade goes off behind. Getting outside ultimately means very little, because all she has is access to another part of the structure. Where the family's sacred cow, Great Grandma, resides. At her wit's end, an event for the ages, irrepressible Stretch banishes Chop Top from Chainsaw Heaven. I would go into this in greater detail, but I recently put out the first episode of Horror's Top Heroines, and Stretch is the subject. That video goes into this more thoroughly, so if you haven't, please.
Oh, check it out! Go check it out.
What a spectacular conclusion to the Sawyer's long murder spree, which lasted through at least 5 presidents. If you really think about it, only one of them was at fault. Who was driving the pickup? Who was incensed by the obnoxious yuppies? Grandpa was too old. Great-Grandma was a mummy. Drayton had no part in it. And Leatherface was a simpleton, unlikely to ever be found behind the wheel. Through the process of elimination, we're left with one culprit. One dipshit who was the gremlin who threw the monkey wrench in everything.
Maybe you forgot. This broke don't bankroll this little business.
And in some ways, it's maybe appropriate. He did fund the operation.
Lucky goose with a machete, no head wound. No head wound, no fancy rolling grill and go-go.
When all is said and done and the dust clears, it was all Chop Top's fault.
Hey, lick my plate, you dog dick!
What can I say? No one is off limits.
Dog will hunt! Dog will hunt!
Nice to see you again. been officers?
You Gregory Tudor?
Yes, I am.
Good-natured, amiable, pleasant even? Gregory's gracious temperament almost counters the fact he's a sicko killer, forcing cannibalism on anyone unfortunate enough to eat his personal brand of ice cream. Sure to come to and go from Walmart as fast as pink sauce.
Can I keep this?
Treating the warrant as a keepsake has to be a boss-level move, although displaying no fear of law enforcement is often construed as a challenge, which is never a good idea. But it seems since they find nothing illegal in the course of destroying his place. He would be easy to feel bad for if he weren't the kind of guy quick to throw a kid in a freezer. And worse, drop a corny 2-on-the-nose bon mot.
Your ice cream.
A sad, pitiable man with a sadistic streak, all Gregory ever wanted was to have a friend, and to be like his hero, his revered childhood ice cream man. Tragically lost via a 1990s inner-city drive-by shooting in the 1950s. And taking a deity-like place in Gregory's mind and life. The problem is that in trying to bond with Small Paul, the neighborhood kid he abducted, talk about stranger danger, he reveals all the means necessary.
Watch your hand. That blade'll take your hand right off.
To bring about his own downfall. Why this matters comes down to Gregory's barely hidden bad behavior. Between dispensing contaminated ice cream,
It's pistachio.
Yo, man, I said 2 creamsicles and a bomb pop.
and extracurricular activities involving the murder of locals to collect ingredients for his ice cream, along with other trinkets. Is that a diaphragm? No, I don't want to know. He's racking up a lot of karmic debt, and it's only a matter of time until the Piper will demand payment in full.
He killed the park guy.
With the adults floundering, the kids have to step up.
He killed Small Paul. So what do we do?
With little trouble, he's able to foil law enforcement's attempt to stop his killing spree. But the neighborhood kids, believing their friend murdered, have banded together and formulated a plan to take care of the ice cream man for good.
Would you like to stir?
Yeah.
Small Paul proves very much alive, and his time with the madman has given him the pieces of the puzzle necessary to actually thwart KG Gregory. Exploiting the deranged ice cream man's deep-seated mental maladies. With his gleaned knowledge.
Ice cream man.
Small Paul is able to take control, triggering a trance-like state similar to a drone ant under the pheromone spell of the Queen. It's apparent some heavy treatment predisposed his mind to heavy-duty flights of fancy and fugues. Led like an ant following a chunk of oatmeal cream pie. If you know that reference, we can be friends.
Happy day.
Gregory is drawn into the least advantageous position for him. Small Paul waiting for the right timing to end the ice cream man's reign of terror. Getting the chum's eye view of the processing of a body into bits and pieces. Early earlier, there was a hint this was always in the cards for the misbegotten Gregory. Never trust a machine that has gotten a taste for human blood. I know such objects are non-sentient, but it is what it is. But then, maybe such trauma is related in some way to childhood.
We start with the fleshy little fingers, then the plump little hand, then the fleshy arm.
There are definitely themes across these kinds of films. In this case, I just mentioned the notion of live by the saw, die by the saw. Here, it's live by the ice cream mixer, die by the ice cream mixer. What really reflects the dastardliness of his actions is Small Paul's almost serene reaction to his emulsification. This kid played the game of life or death with a crazy man.
It's the special amount you put in.
Coming out on top because he was smart enough to know how to employ ingratiation and make himself appealing, but not in a way that leads to any funny business, earning him the final word for all his trouble.
Here's the Pied Piper now, ice cream dick.
Talk about for good. It looks like the ice cream man was chopped up into fine soupy slurry. In person, Clint Howard and his lovely wife swore to me there will be a sequel to this film that takes it in another direction, but Mr. Howard will star. I look forward to seeing how that would work out.
You little turds are gonna have to learn you can't run from the ice cream man. I know where you live.
Gregory was a major creeper, one of those guys too easy to assume is on a registry somewhere. But beyond his goofy outer shell and off behavior, he was an incredibly tragic person, less at fault for his mental irregularities than circumstances outside his control. The film being presented in surreal cartoonish terms seems a choice to give insight into how syrupy Gregory,
Thanks, ice cream man,
perceives the world. A memory seems antediluvian, overlapping time periods that don't even match the actual time period in which the event took place. That's the fractured quality of memory, constructed from small realities and a lot of other scraped together odds and ends, especially when it all comes from the mind of a man too traumatized, and for a time over-medicated, to function in any kind of normal way. After all he suffered, I guess any kind of normalcy was too much to expect from him.
I didn't say please.
I would say the over-the-top depictions of his time committed are meant to be taken as factual recounting, but instead what he's created to repress what had to be incredibly dark times, since his fantasies were nightmarish in their own right.
Open wide, Gregory.
The kind of wonky movie this is, if they revealed the entirety of it was a dope dream, purely a phantasm, and he was in the sanitarium the whole time, that would be a good way to resurrect him from the dead, in a way that wouldn't be patently ridiculous.
You tell anybody, I'm gonna get your mom and dad.
In final summation, the ice cream man can seem very innocuous for a weirdo, that's so dangerous he's not the kind of guy you want to turn your back on.
Shut up. You're not funny.
Can you, Wagger, show yourself?
Based on what they believe in their heart and souls, Marco is a very brave young man to be out presenting himself as bait.
And try to be cool.
Well, you know it.
That's exactly what I mean.
A group of camping forest rangers believe their kooky and drive-the-point-home unlikable co-worker has lost his marbles, and he's the one who has been sabotaging their trip down the rapids and picking them off one by one, necessitating drastic measures.
Won't kill him. Right here.
A trap has been set, but the real killer has been crafty, thoroughly camouflaging herself to blend in so well she merges with the terrain.
Hey, Boom, give me the canteen. Anybody want any water?
Such effective subterfuge, they had no clue when they floated right by her. They will remain unaware of her until she makes herself known, focused as they are on drawing out Edgar.
Where are you, Edgar?
You say too much.
Ranting like a madman, he doesn't exactly make a compelling argument he isn't the killer.
Now you done it. You're gonna take what? You said where you come.
Any form of monologuing is always an opportunity, and Marco takes the occasion to initiate a takedown.
Where'd you come?
Suddenly grappling, the others spring, more than a hint of homage to the Lord of the Flies in their violent actions. Ferocious beatdown underway, Edgar's pretty much screwed. These folks didn't care for him going in, and believing him a murderer. To get him out of this mess, it will take something akin to a Deus Ex Machina. Emerging as if from the land itself, the killer was closer than they ever would have suspected. And she is not one bit happy at the violence exhibited toward the young man. Seeing as how they are on the verge of killing him, her grievance bears some merit. But her methods arguably also fall on the side of too extreme. A proclamation that these woods are hers, the rustic lady won't be ignored. Making her way to the transgressors messing over her boy. Edgar cries out to her pitifully, revealing their connection.
Mom! Mom!
Turns out that he was acting strange about camping in this region because he knew it was the territory of his feral mama. Early on, they told a tale of an assault victim who fell pregnant and was subsequently committed, until her baby grew up enough to get her out and released her in the forest to live free in nature, far away from the perils of civilization. Turns out it was more than a campfire story, and Edgar was the spawn of said defilement. Being under the misimpression Edgar was the killer proves a blessing in disguise. Because the attack upon him lures the real killer right into their trap. No stranger to improvised traps. Feral Mama is another example of going out how she lived, a little poetic justice in action. The force of a log that large sending spikes through a human body, it doesn't look like there's any coming back from that. Hey, was that a young Daryl Hannah? The reveal makes the whole story weirdly tragic, a twisted drama played out across a wilderness canvas. So removed from society was she, Feral Mama was the equivalent of a predator protecting her territory and offspring. A hot-tempered misanthrope quick to direct his resentment toward life at anyone who got in his orbit, Edgar was winning no popularity contests. But knowing his tale, can he exactly be blamed for his bad attitude? He was under a lot of stress.
Forestry worker and a female companion are missing in the North Mill Creek vicinity.
Adrift his whole life, he was doing his damnedest to protect a huntress mother he little knew from encroaching civilization, and in the end failed, because he couldn't deter people he worked with every day. Insight into how a troubled life failed to socialize him in any constructive way.
When's Edgar coming?
The group pretty much hated him.
You better keep him away from us before he gets his ass kicked.
And he was doing his best to protect them from a huntress who made prey of anyone who got too close.
Authorities are continuing the search. The weather will continue fair through tomorrow, followed by increased...
Get the fuck away from him! Not a heart! Ah! Shit!
Dr. Giggles is desperate to save Jennifer Campbell from her weak ticker, using any of a number of hearts he has collected from unsuspecting victims. Mostly her friends. From the good doctor's point of view, wrong-headed, useless authority is standing in the way of him performing miracles.
You win some, you lose some.
Used to this kind of treatment, he can always come up with a plan of escape. The cloak of momentary darkness offers the wiggle room required.
Time to do what doctors do best.
To formulate an attack stratagem. Jennifer's boyfriend shows up to play his part in saving the day.
Jen! What the fuck are you doing here?
Dr. Giggles is intent on salvaging the situation, so it's tea time.
Visiting hours are over.
Wielding a golf club with all the precision of a scalpel, he shows his willingness to play through adversity.
Should've used an 8-iron.
That one might have gotten his ball to the green. Even after taking a golf club to the face and having lost his firearm to the killer, the bravest cop you'll ever find draws the good doctor away from his preferred victim, patient.
This is going to hurt you more than it hurts me.
I'm starting to think he completely misunderstands the Hippocratic Oath. With the home clinic quickly becoming engulfed in flames, one or the other has to be the loser, and surely Dr. Giggles will be the one outdone by the bravest cop around.
Don't make me laugh.
It's only a matter of time until he's the one quaking, when the purveyor of fear becomes the one showing fear. The seriousness of the situation hits right at the heart of the matter. Just in the nick of time, Jennifer and her guy escape the house, right as those tanks in the basement explode. An event that, if he had one, certainly revoked Dr. Giggles' license to practice permanently, by leaving him a burnt cinder. These intensive happenings have left Jennifer's overstressed heart in need of medical intervention, and she's expeditiously prepped for life-saving surgery.
Okay, Jennifer, scoot over, please.
Spreading blood leads a nurse to a heart attack-inducing sight. Not the cinder one might have assumed. The good doctor bursts into the operating theater.
Who the hell are you?
Here it comes.
I'm her doctor.
Chills. If he wasn't an escaped mental patient collecting hearts like some gather truffles, only far less careful with the organs than mushroom hunters are with truffles, I would trust him with my life. When you show up to surgery with your own assortment of instruments, other surgeons are naturally jealous.
What in God's name are those? Just a little something I threw together.
But credit to Dr. Giggles, even if faced with the green-eyed monster, he's willing to allow colleagues,
Of course, they haven't been tested yet.
to participate in the research. Now alone with Jennifer, it's time to save a life.
Jennifer, there's still time. Let's pick up where we left off.
Jennifer knows the only way to do that is to flee fast. Where she will have to face him, she finds her way into a storage room.
Is it my bedside manner?
Trapped in there with the delusional maniac.
Jennifer, it's time to take your medicine.
That's okay, because she's a smart young lady, and improvises will prove.
Try some of your own medicine.
A magnificent plan, one that's simply electric. Either showing she's really brave, or only really fed up with Loopy Boy coming after her, energetic girl that she is, Jennifer doesn't let up. Until he's so totally fried, gravity becomes his biggest nemesis. Jennifer figures a quick escape is in her best interest, but the good doctor has other ideas. Thank goodness for Jennifer. What those ideas are never coalesce beyond him blurting,
I don't feel well.
Take 2 and call me in the morning.
giving him a taste of his own bitter medicine. He's left with only one more option.
Doctor in the house?
Sorry, no doctor here. This one's a good old-fashioned good time, a film that proudly hangs its hat on its organizing principle. The breaking of the fourth wall is a delicious flourish, directly imploring the audience, making a rather pitiful request for a doctor, is so delightfully tongue-in-cheek, so bold yet warranted. Between it and Larry Drake's overall deeply committed performance as the titular character, the film is elevated from a so-so early 90s slasher flick to something special, sure to have a place in the heart, nudge nudge, of horror comedy lovers everywhere.
Just right.
College initiations can be murder if they involve staying on presumably abandoned property. When in fact actually trespassing in an abode very much occupied. And the occupant, in this case one would assume Andrew Garth, the only member of the Garth family suspected to be alive, is none too pleased at the infringement on his turf, although it could just be a surly squatter. Leading to the kind of back and forth that, if witnessed, could become word-of-mouth legend. It's so badass. But to young Seth's misfortune, there's not only no one there to bear witness and spread the word, there's no one there to help when he could desperately use it. It's a good thing he's able to reach the rifle, and ends it with a single shot. Displaying an enormous amount of chutzpah, he double-checks his handiwork, probably wondering how a dumb hazing ritual morphed into killing a man. Turns out a second shot was needed to finish the job. Seth drags the galoot out of the fountain. And what he sees sends him racing to the house. After escaping the House of Horrors, Seth returning to Garth Manor is crazy courageous, but no one else will step up to save his friends, and he's too good of a dude to abandon them, so maybe necessity either bred or unearthed his daring do.
The stinking cops wouldn't believe me, so I had to come here by myself. I killed him out by the pond.
But then he's a surfer, so he's well aware there are times you have to contend with sharks. Unfortunately for him, killers can work in tandem, and taking out one oftentimes means the other one, in this case Andrew, is extra pissed off.
You should have seen him, man. He was like an actor.
With that, the baton of Monster Slayer is passed to Marty. I would say Marty and Jeff, but since he can't fly, Jeff isn't long for this world. Marty is forced to go it alone, and her path out won't come without challenge. Inner reserves fueling her flight, her resilience, resourcefulness, and ability to take some bumps will pay off. On her way through the garden labyrinth, she sees the gruesome face of Morris Garth, the brother the story they were told relegated to corpse status, and it rightfully gives her the major creeps. With Andrew still about, Marty can't center on it too long. Wresting a key from a dead man's hand is the stuff of lasting trauma. Talk about heebie-jeebies, but life is a crazy crapshoot, and Marty is a problem solver, willing to throw the dice if that's what it takes, so no horrific sight or repulsive sensation, no matter how revolting, will diminish her resolve. It's a good thing that it was established that Marty has mechanic expertise. Getting away on foot seems unlikely when her pursuer is over a foot taller, with the corresponding abnormally long legs. Marty is intent on getting out of there. But in her zeal and enthusiasm to escape, she backs up a little too aggressively. The boat of a car is momentarily suspended in place. Before enough gunning, it breaks the hold, setting the stage either for Marty to be home free, or Andrew Garth making his move. At the sudden appearance of his ugly mug, Marty is so out of sorts, so outright flummoxed, stamping on the pedals willy-nilly. It's as if the car takes control of itself, and it's out of her hands for a moment or two. The car still clearly under its own volition. Marty is fending off a beastly assailant after all. It's not until the crucial instant that Marty retakes control. Proving her resourcefulness, she weaponizes the car and the broken gate most effectively. Andrew Garth has a couple of dying moments to ruminate on what it feels like to be the meat on the end of a spit. Before going off into the clearing at the end of the path. Marty can take solace in the fact that even if it was her foot on the pedal, it was the car that orchestrated Andrew Garth's impressively brutal demise. She can walk away with a clear conscience and her head held high. As early 80s college venue slasher films go, this one is a fun little thrill ride. The Garth brothers weren't the most memorable killers. Not likely to get movie maniacs action figures or Funko Pop depictions, but I would argue they were scarier than many of their contemporaries. Playing with the number of killers gave this one a touch more dimension too, and offered a terrific jump scare when Andrew seized Seth. Film grammar telegraphed that there had to be more coming. Even with one attacker seemingly dealt with, the feeling of dread remained. The sense of foreboding didn't disappoint either, culminating in the reveal of a real doozy of a twist. Don't think so? Consider this. When Scream utilized two killers working together, it was considered revolutionary in the subgenre, and this film arrived a full quarter century earlier. It definitely helped that the twist came with a shocking scare thrown in for good measure, making for one big whammo, as the reality of a second aggressor came crashing down. Poor Seth. Good dude shouldn't lose out like that. His whole journey will eventually be chronicled in a future episode of Extraordinary Exits. He was a unique variant on the college frat jock.
Seth! Oh my god! I didn't think you were coming back!
Strangely, the students were entirely in the wrong. Despite the proliferation of urban exploration videos, trespassing is never a good idea, and comes with a plethora of possible pitfalls, the worst of which is the possibility of encountering murderous psychos, willing to exhibit their cruel nature. All the students had to do was avoid Garth Manor, and no one had to die. But who believes the local myth is actually true? It made a good story to instill some fear in the pledges, but to actually believe the mentally deficient survivor of a family annihilation still haunted the old mansion would be the height of absurdity. That is, until it wasn't, and they were getting picked off one by one.
He killed everybody but us. Peter, Scott, May, Denise, they're all dead.
Although Marty's quick thinking to turn Andrew into a shish kebab really drives home how satisfying it is when a damsel turns survivor bests the monster. Because by the same token, the Garth brothers could have ignored the trespassers and stayed in their hidden tunnels, as they had evidently done during previous pledge initiations. When you start killing people, reprisal is often a given. I love Linda Blair in this. She plays Marty with the right blend of demure and unassuming, but also strength and determination. A longtime genre treasure, not only has she been in a lot of interesting films, including being the star of one of the all-time top classics, The Exorcist, I hear Beetlejuice is a fan.
I've seen The Exorcist about 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier every single time I see it!
Linda Blair is also a resoundingly good person, using every bit of celebrity she has to help animals, and that I applaud. In the aftermath of several murders following his release from a long commitment, Norman Bates, innocent the whole time because his certificate stamped sane held water, receives a night visitor. Under it all, Norman might be mad as a hatter, but he's no fool. Since he and the one who took the fall for the killings are innocent, he knows there's a killer, one with a heretofore unknown connection to Norman himself.
Mrs. Spohl.
The lady he worked with in the diner. Okay.
Hello, Norman.
Come in.
Politeness a bit of a personality trait, Norman is nothing if not accommodating, happy to share his meager supper.
Would you like to share my toasted cheese sandwich?
The lady has other things on her mind.
Oh, no, thank you.
Sensitive revelations. She needs to prime him slowly.
You gotta preheat the oven before you stick in the turkey.
Ease him into what she's here to tell.
It's, Miss Spool, actually.
Oh.
Well, so long as she holds thread, whether she's a miss or a Mrs. is inconsequential, or so logical Norman obviously concludes.
You were expecting me.
The prospect of such a visit has been percolating in his mind.
Well, I was expecting someone. I just wasn't sure when.
Norman's hospitality belies a very dark side.
Tea?
Oh, please.
Memory triggers everywhere, The past will always haunt Norman. And that makes him a much more dangerous person than his bookish appearance implies. A man always walking a tightrope.
The name Spool doesn't mean anything to you?
No, should it?
He seems to be gauging if she's here to knock him off balance.
It was Norma Bates' maiden name. The woman you thought was your mother was my sister.
Bold to drop such a big bomb so casually. She could wage and win wars.
I had you when I was very young, out of wedlock.
One would assume.
I couldn't handle a brand new baby, especially being by myself.
That would also make a lot of sense.
I had some trouble and the state put me away for a while.
Well, they got that in common. They both know what it's like to bounce off the walls of a rubber room.
That's when Norman took you in.
I don't know why, but I have a suspicion she's crazier than Norman. Dropping all these bombs on him, shaking his balance.
You were less than a year old. Too young to remember me.
That would stand to reason, although all of this should be taken with a grain of salt, which seems to be how Norman is taking it.
She never mentioned me, did she?
No, she didn't.
Whether what she says is the truth or delusions, that she showed up after dark to tell him all this, grants her next statement extra resonance.
I guess she didn't want you to know you had a mother who wasn't quite right.
Then she goes into her real reason for dropping in.
After I got out, you'd already had your troubles and been committed. I decided to wait for you.
What turns into a confession of sorts.
And then when I saw what they were trying to do to my poor little boy, I couldn't stand it.
Remember, it was all done out of love, out of a desire to preserve Norman.
So I followed them. And one by one...
If it weren't a bloodbath that made what Norman did back in the 50s seem quaint, it would almost be sweet.
After all, you're all I have in this world.
There it is. She wants him to flip the bill for her retirement.
You sure you won't have a sandwich?
Norman is nothing if not gracious when about to snuff out a human life.
Pardon?
Norman has spent every waking moment since getting out of the hospital avoiding falling back into the past, but sometimes escaping that. Well, it proves about impossible. Not for nothing, but if Norman needs to deal with a mother...
You've had a long day and you must be tired. I'll just put you to bed and tuck you in for the night.
He would rather deal with the one in his head.
Put me in my chair. Now, turn me to the window. I want to keep my eyes on you.
He knows she has his back, protecting him from the possible contraction of STDs.
Make sure you don't start playing with filthy girls again.
Miss Spool learned the hard way that Norman is most happy and content when he has an old woman to poison in taxidermy. Upon arrival, she made lots of wild claims, delivering what she considered heavy truths. But since most of her babble subsequently turns out to be hogwash, Norman's instincts, no matter how misguided in the greater context of society, were probably good, if not right. Looking to insert herself in his life, she was going to be a headache, and he had enough trouble on his own. The best part about this swerve ending is that, because throughout the whole film Norman was desperately pushing back against Mother trying to assert her influence in her mind. Ooh, Freudian slip. His mind. Assert her influence in his mind. It revealed that on some level, maybe due to besiegement by all his difficulties and in need of a life preserver, he wanted to give in. He wanted Mother riding shotgun, playing backseat driver, deciding which byways they take, which roads they avoid. Miss Spool represented a convenient tipping point that he needed, an essential step to letting Mother resume control, because Norman's basically a good guy. I know, weird, right? And knows what Mother's control will mean. It's interesting that when he does knuckle under, it's because another woman challenged Mother's place in his world by claiming to be his long-lost real mother, and likely became his, Norman's, true first victim, since the others were taken out under Mother's control. After immersing him in more murder than you can shake a stick at, and placing the blame at his doorstep, after all, it was all for him. He gave up, or gave in, or maybe both. Between her abhorrent actions and sudden appearance to explain his blame by proxy, he concluded all of it was his sad fate, inescapable. It was as if she gave him license to throw off the shackles of sanity, a very limiting and lonely state of being for a man such as Norman. Like the ones on old tapestries hung in dusty places, some patterns never change.
But we know all about that, don't we, Norman?
Yes, Mother.
A group of unlikely heroes, Reggie, Mike, and Liz, are taking on the forces of evil, in this instance by sabotaging a dimensional alien's portal to another world.
Let's torch this place and get the hell out of here.
Said dimensional alien, informally known as the Tall Man, won't stand idly by and watch his property undergo tampering. That could turn into a real hassle, and he has a busy schedule of corpse shrinking and shipping. Reggie is definitely the kind of guy who would jump on a grenade to save his friends. Help is far away, literally on another world. Proficient embalmer that he is, the Tall Man looks over the implements of the trade. Selecting a nice long trocar with a very sharp tip. With clinical detachment, the statuesque death dealer runs through what's in store for her. He's nothing if not efficient. Bringing over the embalming machine, he fails to notice some acid has been added to the mix. Meanwhile, Mike uses Reggie as a ladder, and returns the favor by dragging him back through the portal, and by the looks of things, none too soon. In the other room, the Tall Man is preparing to process Liz. Seeing as how this usually goes down when the body is just that, a body, even without the fluid being traded out for acid, what awaits her would be the height of unpleasant. If the invasive, touchy-feely intimacy forced upon her is any indication, this will be tantamount to defilement. Fixing to make entry into her body by piercing her carotid artery, Mike's return from the Red World is most timely. And he's here to make it clear, if anyone's going to poke that young woman, it's going to be him. There it is again, live by the killer sphere and all that. But not so fast. This goes a bit differently than it does for your typical spear victim. Demonstrating just how otherworldly he is, the Tall Man's erupting blood is the color of infection, and not the deep red corpuscles of life. Internal fluid spouting out like Old Faithful. If nothing else, the bizarre exsanguination creates a distraction. Otherwise, for now breaking the live by the sword, die by the sword theme, the Tall Man is little more than amused that one of his killer spheres was used against him. Amused, yes, but not altogether happy about it. A thorn in his side too long. Mike needs to suffer, and the Tall Man doesn't hold back, letting loose all that's accumulated on his mind. Some kind of bizarre phallic protrusion pops out to say howdy, and it has a thirst for blood. Experiencing these kind of grotesque, unexplainable, and wholly peculiar happenstances since he was a kid, Mike takes it all in stride as Liz strikes back with that trocar. Nice! Once again, the theme reasserts itself before film's end. Live by the trocar, die by the trocar. In tense moments, either you find the capacity to be the hero, or die trying. Proving he's the man, Reggie hits the switch to engage the embalming machine, and acid pumps directly into the tall man's body. The shocking and appalling results are almost instantaneous. The fate of prey bitten by a rattler, he's disintegrating from the inside out. An occurrence even rarer than raw steak. As if in supplication, the tall man is brought to his very knees. Oh yeah, this is one of those classic eye-popping grand finales. With their foe seemingly defeated, Reggie gets back to the task they came here to accomplish. Destroying just one of the many tall man layers out there, since he's at home in any mortuary, mausoleum, or funeral home. What is there even to say about this tall man destruction? It has a bit of everything. Suspense, shock, horror, and enough gore to satisfy any fan. This is one of those wet, visceral, grueling villain deaths that's as cheer-worthy as it is stomach-churning. Even though everyone knows his vessel is as expendable as a prophylactic, once used entirely discardable, there's a feeling of finality, as if they are actually besting the alien invader. The tall man's blood being a different color isn't just a nice detail to separate him from us. It made it so when this kind of wet, gooey violence was committed against him, it wouldn't scuttle the film's ability to receive an R rating. The severe exsanguations were enough of a hurdle, one that vexed franchise creator Don Coscarelli indefinitely. The way to get gore past the censors can come down to not having the fluids that come out of bodies be red.
What? No. What? No. What? No.
Have them bleed yellow, green, black, or even purple. Suddenly you're in the running for a hard PG-13. No matter how you drill it, the finale of this one is an eye-poppingly good time. After getting shot 6 times and working his way through the appetizers that were the evening hospital staff, Michael has pursued the main course, the object of his affection, to an operating room. Laurie is seemingly too irresistible for him to stop, but at the moment, it would seem luck is on Michael's side. To be fair, Laurie never loses her cool, even giving Michael fair warning. It wouldn't be hyperbole to say he gave her no choice. Seemingly shooting out his eyes. One might think, Laurie certainly thinks, that his threat has been nullified, but Michael is one stubborn SOB. It's a catch-22. If she moves, he'll hear her. If she stays put, his wild swinging will eventually intercept her anyway. Dr. Loomis could probably use some therapy himself. Some of his decisions have not only been questionable, but revealing of a bit of mental distress. But his sense of duty, which has driven him through this entire hellish night, won't allow him to sit idly by while his patient hacks up a teenage girl. Catching right on, Laurie joins in. And their tag teaming throws off what senses Michael has left. Even discombobulated, he's relentless in his objective. Dr. Loomis encourages Laurie to get out while the getting is good.
Yeah, now.
With the room filling with flammable gases, Dr. Loomis sees a surefire way to end this.
It is time, Michael.
The blast is loud and big and engulfing, turning this section of the hospital into an inferno. As if out of hell itself, Michael emerges. He hasn't come this far to be deterred by some pesky flames. It's just a little fire after all. Not like stop, dropping, and rolling would help. Until Michael learns that the debilitating effects of fire extend even to him. If the Sawyers were here, this would be a barbecue. No matter how truly unkillable Michael has proven to be over the many decades he has persevered, this was clearly meant to be conclusive, an unsurvivable ending for Michael and his bereft doctor, a signal to the audience, don't expect more of this. Since Halloween 3: The Season of the Witch, a terrific fantasy horror film I for one laud, failed to ignite audience interest. In the name of profits, Michael needed to be revivified, no matter how unlikely that scenario, after getting all the skin cooked off his body. As a child, this whole sequence terrified me like few others. The TV version would be on around Halloween, and I made it a point to watch it every chance I got. The thought of being cornered while a big killer comes in wielding a sharp instrument really accelerated my pulse rate. Just the way Michael doesn't let a little thing like getting his eye shot out interfere with his attack made me feel like he was this inescapable thing that would never stop coming. When Dr. Loomis sacrificed himself to end the evil, in my book it made him the height of heroism. That's the thing about the series continuing. Dr. Loomis was denied his noble sacrifice, to right all his wrongs by ending the bloodbath once and for all. The problem is, in the case both lived, that was entirely too much risk. Laurie easily could have been collateral damage, not to mention, there was a maternity ward full of babies nearby. A killer working through some serious romantic issues in about the unhealthiest way possible. Russ Thorne has naturally found his way to a slumber party and wants to play a trick. The batty interloper feels an abundance of nubile young flesh will aid him with his maladies, and this is the perfect venue to sling his extra long drill bit. But if he thought he happened upon a house full of wilting violets and damsels in distress, he's going to learn a lesson about underestimating his opposition. I mean, if you have a fireplace poker in hand. When the slumber partiers become aware of the aggressive malignancy in their midst, they seek to extract it and force it out. Commit violence against them, expect reprisal in kind, no matter the emotional toll. So far, a very successful killer. Things just got real for Thorne. A retaliatory disembowelment is one way to assert control. These girls are supposed to be scared and accept their victimhood, and lay down for whatever penetration he wants to bestow upon them. Great guy that he is, always such a giver. Elsewhere in the basement, final girl Valerie makes a telling selection. If nothing else, Thorne is very pleased with himself for badly hurting his victim. And him hovering over a woman with an enormous drill isn't evocative at all.
Pretty. All of you are very pretty.
Some sweet nothings ought to get her moist in the shorts.
Please don't do this.
I love you.
An unrequited declaration of love from a stranger. He's got the sweet talk down pat.
Takes a lot of love for a person to do this.
Classic abuser victim blaming. It's only because I love you so much I have to hurt you. If you ever find yourself in such a situation, get out.
You know you want it.
Well, with all that charm on display, how can she resist?
I don't even know you.
Knowing her is immaterial to Thorne. For him, women exist as a collective, interchangeable, each a new example of supple flesh into which to insert his long drill bit. But he's about to be taught a lesson for all his gross externalized misogyny. Reflecting the real balances of his strength and cowardice, the sight of her so skillfully handling the machete forces him to choose flight over fight, and he runs for it. A polar shift in prey and predator dynamic having happened in an instant, actually getting away is another thing altogether. Brandishing the drill like an erection he knows how to use, one that will always stay hard. A solid swing of the machete proves his phallic symbol can't stand up to Valerie's phallic symbol when she asserts her feminine power. Snapping off the symbol of his manhood not enough. She wants a toll in flesh for what he put them through. Severing a limb would seem a solid means of unhanding, so to speak, an attacker. That's the look of a man who just lost his jerking off hand. Since rubber vaginas won't cut the mustard, why he would be using mustard as lube, who can say? His reaction says it all, but Valerie is ready for his impotent rage. Sending him into the pool with an opened up gut, retribution for earlier, and all his fantasies dashed. Now driven as much by vengeance as his perversity,
I love you, Val.
the attention-starved whelp wreaks havoc on a heartwarming moment between sisters. If only he showed this kind of tenacity when it came to bettering his mental health. The strength of a madman imbues him with everything it takes to get slap-happy. Enough separation coupled with Thorne's intense persistence leads to him getting that penetration he so sorely desired. It takes a lot of love to do something like that. A lot of love for her sister and friends. No one walks away from someone dying on top of them without some residual trauma. They will all carry scars from this. After all that nasty business undertaken by a bad man, little sister Courtney wears a look that says, when I get a husband, I'm going to castigate him every chance I get. This one really shows that surviving isn't where the story ends. The final shot ending on a black screen, perhaps an indicator of the blackness that will consume their lives for years to come. This one is another odd character study, exploring the deplorable actions of a man deeply in need of connection and intimacy, but no way to achieve as much with a personality as screwy as his. Emphasis on the screw and screwy, because Russ Thorn definitely wanted some screwing in his life. Yes. Maybe an early depiction of an incel, he had to force himself on women to fulfill his needs, in some way justifying it, because he believed them responsible for the inadequacy that prevented him from performing like a quote-unquote real man. Yes. Stubborn man that he was, after everything, he was never ready to concede that what made him a eunuch came from within, and wasn't the fault of the women he was attacking, to his great misfortune. Yes. The ladies banded together to demonstrate that women want reciprocity in a relationship, not the one-sided BS he was trying to sell, and he had a lot to learn about women all around. The name Thorn has interesting connotations. In cheap romance novels, it can be another term for a tumescent penis, as in, the maiden anticipated the puncture of his thorn. It can work as a humorous pun.
Our love is like a red, red rose, and I am a little thorner.
In the realist sense, Thorn's prick, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. Yes. But obviously something prevented him from natural and healthy sexual expression. Thus the giant drill is a stand-in for his ineffectual manhood, what some might call a rinky-dink-dink.
If I wanted a joke, I'd follow you into the John and watch you take a leak.
All of this is such a blatant on-the-nose dig at all slasher villains and their implements of destruction, shining a bright light on the inadequacies and, shortcomings that drive men to murder women, that it borders on parody.
Well, I think we ought to get something out of this.
This was a slasher from the heyday of the halcyon early 1980s, when the subgenre dominated, and nearly every example was the brainchild of a man. Yes. Granting this one more even-handed representation, even though it has all the frills of a typical slasher, it was written by Rita Mae Brown and directed by Amy Holden Jones, so it has a feminine flair and sensibility that gives it a unique and refreshing feel. I also think it meant Russ Thorn's defeat had to be particularly emasculating. Yes. For who does the bell toll? It tolls for thee, sir. It tolls for thee.
Welcome to Wonderland, Alice.
Alice, the Dream Master, has come to the lair Freddy erected in her dreamscape to end him. Which he finds entertaining, humoring her acrobatics because what else does he have to do? His real desire to make her submit and surrender to his will, all this is pageantry to propagate hopes he can dash. Even if he would like to, he can't kill her.
You think you've got what it takes?
Given Kristen's ability to pull others into her dreams, as much curse as gift, if not more curse, and thereafter developing into the Dream Master as she collected her friends' positive traits, as Freddy absorbed their souls, Alice is his only connection to future victims.
I've been guarding my gate for a long time, bitch.
So he needs her to give in and be his conduit. How best to accomplish that? Break her spirit. Make her see there's no way to defeat him.
I am eternal.
And put her in her place. The problem is that Alice has grown too much, from an unseen wallflower into the torchbearer, no longer willing to give an inch.
The master of things on soul feet.
And even if this is Freddy's lair, not for nothing, this is also her dream, and it will provide her with the means.
In the reflection of my mind's eye.
If she has the will to make it happen.
Evil will see itself. And itself!
Freddy is suddenly feeling the tickle of a lot of unhappy souls. Looking for avenues of escape from the dungeon in which he has trapped them. And they are antsy as hell for their liberation. It isn't a request, a suggestion, or something she would like him to get around to sometime in the not-too-distant future. It's a demand so powerful, Freddy has no choice but to be the one submitting. As the captive soul sees control.
You're dead, Krueger!
Freddy seems totally at the mercy of their will. And winds up pinned to the wall. Looking like some kind of bizarre deep-sea creature, or the thing 3 seconds before the flamethrower makes it toast. As it turns out, the actual mechanism to release the souls involves a total jaw unhinging. Souls are spewing out as if spouting from a big, thick fire hose. Once they have all cleared out, Freddy is shown for the little more than a scarecrow he really was, given dream substance, and propped up by his stuffing, in this case a bevy of angry spirits, who were looking to go to the light, and because of Alice, were able to move on from Freddy's atrocious bondage. Which they seem to acknowledge with an outpouring of what is surely gratitude. As they exit stage left.
Rest in hell.
The victor in so many ways, Alice departs Freddy's lair with her head held high, but no chip on her shoulder, proud but humble, and the doors close on Freddy. Forever? Of course not. He wasn't lying when he said he's eternal. But for the purposes of this video, we'll pretend Mr. Krueger was permanently, and not temporarily, banished from existence. What a fantastic and fantastical finale! And by virtue of visualizing the release of the accrued souls of the children, it ups the ante of what was a satisfying ending when Freddy's bones were laid to rest in the previous film. Alice is one of those characters that has a very rich and relatable arc, starting as the quiet mousy type, who not only finds her voice and embraces the great breadth of her inner beauty, but becomes a proactive fighter of monsters, unwilling to be Freddy's pawn, especially when it meant being an adapter to funnel him a never-ending supply of victims. I want to address horror film scholar John Kenneth Mears' criticism of this ending, and its seeming lack of continuity with other entries.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Perhaps there was more of me to spread around.
Mears didn't seem to vex Freddy in the past, and were a nifty way to mess with the Dream Warriors. So how can Mears possibly be used in his undoing? What Mr. Mears doesn't take into account is that the Dreamer, no matter Freddy's power or influence, sets the rules of their dream. Since most didn't have a definite set of dream rules, or the mindset to establish such regulations, Freddy was able to exploit that wishy-washiness and turn their dreams into his personal playground. Even when they actively tried to maintain control, they were already at too much of a disadvantage to outmatch or outwit the devilishly cruel and far more experienced trickster. A monster able to shape such terrifying realities, the victim is too gobsmacked with fear to control anything. The thing is, by film's end, Alice has emerged from her cocoon as the Dream Master, all but entirely fearless, and I posit that she ultimately had total control over her dream world, and maybe even to some extent the greater dream realm, not Freddy. If she believed him gazing upon his reflection was the key to releasing the souls of the others, her will was enough to make it happen. Unbeknownst to her, throughout the goings-on, she developed into a top-tier lucid dreamer, enough to strip a nightmare demon of his powers and banish him, at least for a time, from the dream realm.
Blasphemer!
Maybe it was the sense of finality to this that pressed New Line Cinema to fast-track the next sequel, released less than a year later, like literally a week short of a year, so a very rushed production.
Your wish is my command.
Or maybe it was the huge box office returns. Either way, this was a big glossy Freddy movie that was the most profitable film in the franchise before Freddy vs. Jason, and it offered a big fitting ending for the Dream Demon. One the Dream Warriors approached, but failed to deliver by not specifically showing the release of the children's souls. What a climax!
I was like a frightened little baby last night.
For a young lady who feels at home on camping expeditions, real fear can still be struck in her when she's deep in the woods.
I was helpless.
And she's downright melancholic over lacking what she considers an important aspect of survival instinct, unable to do what a friend could.
Megan took the knife, she didn't just sit there.
When all their friends vanish and one of them turns up dead, possibly an accident, but who knows, her boyfriend Warren goes for help, leaving her alone at their camp. Just when she's thinking,
"It's really weird out here,"
she finds out the true depth of weirdness that can exist in these isolated environs. With a dirty inbred behemoth chasing her down, Connie puts her tree climbing skills to the test and monkeys her way up, just in time to avoid losing a foot. The problem with scaling a tree. Without means of branching, you're trapped in the tree. Chopping away with all the enthusiasm of a lumberjack paid by the felled tree, it's only a matter of time before, well, timber. Meanwhile, underwhelming Warren manages to do something right, and returns with Ranger McLean, whom most importantly of all, comes armed. Retreat failed to spare her. Had the men not appeared when they did, Connie was mincemeat. The fact she needed rescue sits with her about as well as all her feelings of inadequacy when it comes to protecting herself in an unfamiliar and scary place. Feeling danger is still layered in the thick atmosphere surrounding them, lurking about, close but unseen. Connie applies makeup as if putting on war paint, preparing herself to take a much different approach should more danger arise.
You never know who you might run into up here.
Next thing you know, the twin of the dead behemoth is breaching the perimeter of their camp, and Warren proves as useless as a nipple on a tomcat. To be fair, he's so terrified, it's possible his nipples are lactating. As for Connie, no longer able to exist in a state she considers cowardice, and all limbered up from all that tree climbing, she throws herself into the fray and battles the mountain man on his own terms. Fearless in her hands-on approach, she strikes back at every volley he launches. With such a major size advantage, the brute is able to wrestle her into a body lock. If he had any clue just what a fight for his life he was in, he would maybe work harder to stop her from wriggling free, giving her a chance to reset. Forcing closeness will be his downfall. Proximity breeds opportunity. This is when things get risque, lurid, and not safe for work.
Please, God, no! If you have any shred of decency, you'll stop right there!
As I was saying, what we're about to see is the ultimate penetration in film, outside the porno industry. What gag reflex? I've spoken about this film in a previous video. I suggest you...
Oh, check it out!
And I stand by what I said about this sequence then. That is nothing short of glorious, cheer-worthy, and straight up.
Like one of those horrible acts against nature that are just seared into your brain like a hot brand.
So memorable in the worst way, but that's okay. In fact, it's awesome. Connie is so resolute, too. The way you have to do it in this kind of situation. She doesn't relent, second guess, or back down for even an instant, forcing the ultimate deep throat as she forcibly drives the beastly man to his back. And continues to ram her fist as far down his throat as she can force it, almost to her elbow. Unyielding, committed to a truly horrific act, because it's the only way. Knowing it's him or them. Until it's over, and she's succeeded in suffocating their attacker to death. As she withdraws the fist in question, there's a gross squelchy wet sound. Bet she can't wait to wash that hand. Even so, there's a sense of relief and satisfaction. She bested a truly intimidating force, and overcame her inability to confront her fears head on. And as the sun rises, she rightly takes her place as Queen of the Woods, an absolute boss bitch, if she sets her mind to it, able to conquer any domain. This one is so naturalistic, brutal, and downright savage, harkening back to less civilized times, when the mightiest prevailed through primitive ingenuity, that not only is it a ferociously kick-ass trouncing of a terrifying figure, it's a reminder of how far we've come as a species. Connie was transported back in time, and used her most valuable tool, herself, her ability to evolve and face down fear, to come out on top, literally. In that exchange, she was definitely the top.
Oh, Lord.
I would say she underwent a temperance adjustment, a recalibration that made it possible to take on and defeat the backwoods behemoth. This one might be my personal favorite. I love when a final girl finds her strength. In the truest sense, this example is absolutely the pinnacle of the form. A vengeful and bloodthirsty Jason attacks because blood isn't people, and revenging spills it. Although what he would be revenging by killing Trish and Tommy is debatable. But he's had a traumatic brain injury and is maybe a little bit on autopilot, chasing after flickers of movement, doing what he knows. When they briefly incapacitate the big lug, he comes to just in time for a good scare. Then he's presented with a choice. No delicate flower. Without a second thought, Trish bravely leads away the marauder in a last-ditch effort to protect her little brother. They are literally in the middle of nowhere in the deep woods, so there isn't even a hint of help. What's worse, all she can think to do is lead him back to the house next door, a place she already knows he turned into a den of horror. And from there she goes up the stairs, when she should probably be going out the front door. Hey, is that where... Trish takes one of those famous leaps of faith. That work out so well for optimists, and give people like me broken extremities. In a pose slightly reminiscent of crucifixion, without even trying, Trish sticks the landing. Even Jason is impressed. With some effort, she drags herself up and goes home. Once inside, Tommy calls out to her, and her response says everything. Trish is entirely prepared to sacrifice her life so Tommy has a chance to escape, at least make distance, and it seems to hurt her that he would squander her noble offering. The thing of it is, though, Tommy is a bright young man with a plan, working on transforming himself into a visual ruse. Besides, he couldn't live with himself if he abandoned his sister to Jason, because whether Tommy is there to offer eventual aid or not, Jason is still coming. Potential friends, even a possible love interest, all brutally murdered, and in her neck of the woods no less. Trish is fed up and demonstrates her frustration. That's gotta smart no matter what. Legendarily high pain tolerance be damned. She strikes at the heart of his personal bugaboo, referencing his dear mother, Mrs. Voorhees. For all her hardiness and strength, brute that he is, Jason is too much. And when he closes the distance, easily overpowers her and puts her on the floor, where in the fight for her life, Trish shows her strong bottom game. But it's only a matter of time until Jason overwhelms her. So Tommy's arrival is more than fortuitous. It's likely life-saving. The boy garners the killer's full attention. Tommy's unique stratagem seems to work. Does Jason comprehend enough to recognize a living effigy of his younger self? Or is he merely curious at this odd child attempting to engage him?
Jason, don't you remember?
It's indecipherable, no matter what is going on in his twisted noodle. Jason is seemingly spellbound, drawn to the bald-headed boy. This distraction is the only pretext Trish needs to make a big move. In the process bringing about the unmasking, the film has been leading to all along. The hockey mask and the machete hit the floor, and Jason slowly turns, revealing a ghastly sight. With Trish overcome with horror at the crudely distorted face only a mother could love, Tommy makes his move. And when Jason commits the unforgivable crime of closing in on Trish, the boy does the only logical thing. A second traumatic brain injury spells doom for Jason. Suddenly, in the aftermath of a harrowing event, neither quite knows what to think. But they do know one thing, what's really important. A twitch of the death nerve sends Tommy careening off the deep end, but after all he's been through, and in such a short time, is it really at all surprising? This video will hopefully be up on Friday the 13th, so of course Jason had to top out this list. Well, that unfortunately didn't work out. Lesson to me not to write such long videos, recording them blows out my voice, elongating the recording and editing process. But anyhow, back to the video. Plus, Jason may very well be the most famous example of live by the sword, die by the sword, but with a machete, lending my theme theory even more credence and credibility.
Listen, I've had just about enough of your comedy, clown.
Besides, this one is a classic Tom Savini showpiece that demonstrated sometimes the worst deaths can be rather simple, and don't necessarily need all the twinkle and trappings to make them stand out. It didn't have to be a big flashy beheading, or show buckets of blood. Sometimes the real impact, besides the machete blade crashing through skull, can all come down to a violent action carried out for good reason by an unlikely rescuer. No child should ever be so tasked. Future films would chronicle Tommy's lasting trauma, showing that even stepping up and playing hero doesn't necessarily ensure any happy endings. As originally written, Jason's head was supposed to be split down the middle. When writer Barry Cohen saw how the scene was altered, he felt it revealed underlying plans for another sequel. I agree with the cynicism, but I don't believe the assertion. I think Paramount, believing another sequel following one that cashed in on the 3D fad, and therefore claimed a lot of novelty dollars, wouldn't fare great, and were fine with scuttling the franchise when that was the projection. The problem is that when you put out a horror flick so good it gets lots of word of mouth, and the profits pour in, the studio starts rethinking its silly pretensions about not putting out any more of those critically hated, but surprisingly lucrative slashers.
Yep, that stands up to scrutiny.
Exploitation, even cheapness and tastelessness, are only a problem, well, beyond to the sanctimonious, who will always take exception to such things, when they fail to turn enough of a profit. Respectability was like a shiny badge the big studios like to earn and wear at their convenience, ultimately removable when a situation dictated. Paramount only got into the business of Friday the 13th because Halloween proved less a shooting star and more a comet, so they thought, why not shoot for the stars ourselves with one of these crowd-pleasing and commercially viable slashers? Their motivation? Money, box office returns, moolah by the boatload. Basically, it was entirely profit-driven. If there were dollars to soak up, they were throwing their own big and absorbent sponge into the mix. They invested in and promoted the first film like an A picture, denied critics a chance to ravage what was a little potboiler with gory set pieces, claimed it was the scariest movie ever made, and reaped untold success. It's the reason Jason, as well as others on this list, can always be resurrected. They have their credentials, the name recognition, to guarantee good, even great turnover. Still, I believe this vicious Jason death was meant to lop off the head of the franchise, even if Jason's head remained attached. But then, that was seemingly the underlying goal of every sequel, to be the final nail in the coffin. Luckily for us, there have consistently been enough like-minded individuals paying in to ensure
Jason never dies.
Since future tariffs are costing many their Christmas bonuses, and this video is being released in the middle of December, and all of this comes from my mind, not other countries, I can afford to give a little present.
A bonus party!
Billy, having come under the false belief that when dressed as Santa Claus he's the arbiter of naughty and nice, and it's his job to dispatch the naughty, returns to the orphanage of his youth to take out the naughtiest of the naughty.
No, don't!
An orphan sees Santa. Hell, a lot of kids. They're going to have an open door policy and let him in. In fact, the entire assemblage of children is delighted at his appearance.
Chrissy, stay away!
Stay with me. But Mother Superior, it's Santa Claus.
Here before Mother Superior, the shrewish woman who used regimental abuse to skew his moral compass and distort and model his entire coloration of the world, exerts her authority in an attempt to revoke his license to kill.
There's no Santa Claus.
Despite her status as a grade A bitch, you have to admire that she stands by her convictions.
There is no Santa Claus.
Hypocritical tyrants often crumble when their opposition storms the gates. The respect for authority that bestowed her word with weight was supplanted the instant he accepted the mantle of Santa, becoming judge, jury, and executioner. And he judged her. He judged her a lot. And the verdict is no surprise. In this instance, she's probably praying, "Dear God, validate my heavy-handed approach and save me from this fallen zealot, so I may continue treating children like urchin, so they may grow up under no delusions about their lowly place in this world." In this alternate reality, God obviously relishes the suffering of the little ones. Just remember, much like with the Mountain Twin, it's okay to shoot them in the back so long as it's the bad guy. Although, in Billy's case, there might have been other solutions, such as appealing to his desire not to mess over the innocent children by warping them permanently. A modicum of kindness and caring in his last moment? Not a chance. That would be too decent.
You're safe now.
Billy has only one concern, which proves my earlier claim: the safety and emotional health of these orphan children.
Santa Claus is gone.
With that final declaration, he dies. Dramatically. All this had a major impact on one of the kids, Billy's little brother, Ricky.
Naughty.
No, I'm sure all of this won't lead to anything bad for him. Treated like a future ne'er-do-well because his parents were murdered, kind of a strange reason to persecute a kid already living a nightmare. What little chance Billy had at a normal life was shot when he couldn't be assertive enough to refuse to be the store Santa when tasked with the duty at his first job. Obedient to a fault, he had to be dutiful after all. It was beat into him. Refusing any request would be outright disrespectful and an unforgivable affront against beast man and God alike. The kind of sin that leads to eternal damnation and demons running a train on your bunghole. Or so it was pounded into him. Poor Billy, despite his deplorable actions, he killed a lot of fine women, isn't really a bad guy.
What?
Just a confused, mixed-up kid who grew into an adult body but never matured beyond the mentality of a child. This is another film I covered in a past video, so check that out for more insights. But right now I'll focus on the rather tragic Billy, and why he did what he did. Silent Night, Deadly Night is a rare bird, and by no means a turkey, one that puts the true evil in the hands of the one who set off the murderous villain. Back in the day, this movie ticked off parents like few others, because it dared to present a killer Santa. What should have angered them was the all-too-real depiction of religion being used to break a child, and mold him into a monster through hypocritical dogma, strict discipline, and harsh punishment. Mother Superior is the worst kind of villain, one in an unassailable position of authority, who exploits her power to do harm under the guise of moral superiority. Here's an uncomfortable question. Had Billy succeeded in his mission, how many innocent children would have been spared her tyranny, and had greatly improved lives? It might be an unpopular opinion, but the cause of the murder spree probably also deserved to be a victim of it. On that note, I hope everyone has a
Merry Christmas.
With Billy dealt with, that's it. We've reached the end of this journey through the treacherous jungle of villain exits.
Boy, was this a wash. Yeah.
Future husband is definitely in for castigation. The Thorne legacy will live on every time she busts his balls, or denies him a busted nut. Anyhow, a bevy of nefarious creeps, weirdos, oddballs, miscreants, and/or total maniacs have met their matches, and come to illustrious ends in a variety of interesting, novel, and painfully brutal ways.
Not every day is a happy, happy, happy day.
Some of these set pieces were more sophisticated and involved than others, some more technical, but all achieve a high level of spectacle. Each baddie perished in tremendous and befitting terms. Often as a testament to the enduring nature of the human spirit. Honestly, it would be difficult to determine a personal favorite. I lean toward Just Before Dawn, because it maybe shocked me the most of them all, but each of these was outrageous, astonishing, and/or simply mind-blowing in their own right. They are the kind of cappers that are more satisfying and satiating, like a substantial meal of healthy, savory food, versus one heavy in sweets and saturated fats. Yet they are the best of taste treats, nutritious and good to the last nibble. Some high watermarks here, but most importantly, we can enjoy them all guilt-free, because to reiterate,
they had it coming.
What have we learned? Whatever implement you use will likely be turned against you. Never underestimate the ladies, their claws will come out. When outnumbered, know your limits. Prowess offers no insurance. No amount of expertise guarantees success. Inflexibility and obsession almost always lead to trouble. The world is a graveyard, so dig it. Don't assume anyone will accept victimhood. A knife in the hand is better than 2 knives in the bush. Oh, and the more phallic your weapon, the more humiliating your defeat. Yes. Well, I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Thanks for tuning in for this 50th episode special, and, more importantly, humoring my ramblings. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me for whatever I'm up to next time.
No.
Bye now.
Bye, creepy man! Keep it creepy!
He's a weird guy.
Goodbye! Have any leads?
It's classified, Ice Cream Man. It's classified.
Slap me fire.